This is Tony and Casey's Best of Food and Wine on All Time Favorites, AM 650.
Don't stop, make it pop, DJ blow my speakers up tonight. I'ma fight till we see the sunlight. Tick tock on the clock, but the party don't stop, no.
Welcome back to the Best of Food and Wine. I'm Tony Gismondi.
I'm Casey Wilson.
We're coming to you live from the floor of the Vancouver International Wine Festival, year 37. The theme is France, and the under theme is bubbly, sparkling wine. There's tons of it in the room. Our guest is Bill Spence, and we just dragged him away from drinking champagne. He's been mostly doing that all night, if the folks at Matua are listening. Bill, welcome back.
Thank you.
Good to see you. We talked a lot about Sauvignon Blanc, but we want to talk about the other variety that's really taking off in New Zealand. And everybody wants to drink Pinot Noir, but it's very hard to make it. What's going on in Marlborough? How have they managed to do that?
Well, what we've done is in Marlborough we've looked at. Well, let's take one step back. We've got Nikolai St. George, who's our chief winemaker, and he runs the team, and he's very much into don't play with it. Don't just leave it alone and let it do its own thing. And so we've planted Pinot Noir purely for Pinot Noir production, the red wine production. And what we do is we go out, we machine harvest the Pinot Noir, and we take it into the winery. We plunge it, we machine plunge it, and we let it sit, macerate for about 2 days after fermentation.
Yep.
We put it in 2-year-old seasoned oak for about 16 weeks.
So no new oak.
No new oak.
Yep.
Pull it out, and we just pull it out and bottle it. We're wanting a wine that has freshness to it. It shows those Pinot Noir velvet characters, those nice cherry characters in the back palate, and there's those nice velvet tannins that come through. And that's what we've tried to create with this one, and I think we've done it really, really well. And it's what I call a summertime red. It's a red that ladies could drink, that people that like drinking red rather than white. It's a wine that just has so much going for it, and it's a fresh style of red wine.
Yeah, totally. Well, let's give it a go. You're going to crack it open. It's a bit different than the Pinot you started out with, or you thought about when you first got going, like 40 years ago. You said something cool, like you tried to make Cabernet out of Pinot or Bordeaux out of Pinot. Like, what was going on?
Exactly. We believed that everybody wanted to have wines that were big and fat and red. And
Well, a lot of them did.
Well, exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And over-extractive. And that's our problem. We ended up getting very leafy green characters, plenty of colour, but no flavour. So that's what we've done now. We've planted the right clones of Pinot Noir, and we've got 3 main areas that are growing Pinot Noir. We've got Martinborough, we've got now the Blenheim, the Marlborough region, and then we have Central Otago. And so we've got all those 3 areas making all different styles of Pinot Noir. And Joe, Pinot Noir is a hell of a grape to grow, but you end up with green shop berries in some cases. Some years it gives you a big fat crop, sometimes it doesn't. We're trying to keep being consistent on the vine, and but once you get it ripe, it's fine. You can just take it onto the winery and then you just let it do its own thing.
You don't have to do much to it.
You're dead right. And the more you play with it, the more you complicate it.
Yeah, and Marlborough to me is kind of the gulpable, juicy style, which is what I so admire in it, because there's so much contemplation about Pinot Noir and Burgundy, but sometimes you just want to drink it.
Exactly, and that's the beauty of this wine here. Look, the regional Pinot Noir is just a wine that is. I even recommend people to just. I do it at home and put it into the fridge for a little bit just to cool it off a bit.
Yes, good idea.
And in the summer days.
Was that heighten the fruit, or why do you do that?
Well, I just do it because it just rounds the whole wine off.
Yeah.
And it's. You've got to make sure that people have a tendency to look at Pinot Noirs and they say, oh, it's light in colour, so it's going to be light in body, it's going to be light in flavours.
Yeah.
It's not the case with this wine. You
Not
try
at
it, it's just it's nice and full and round, and it finishes sweet, but those soft tannins at the end. It's not
a
abrasive.
great food wine.
It is. It's a fantastic food wine. It's great for just sitting there having pizza or pasta and that sort of thing.
Salmon.
I have a question that I want after going to your
You're not allowed.
wonderful presentation, Tony, yesterday with France.
Oh, you're so kind, Casey.
It's not like me, I know.
No.
And the question is the viticulturist more important than the winemaker?
Look, I would always say that the wine basically is made in the vineyard. I think that winemakers do a great job, and we try and do a great job, and we we play with it a bit. Maybe the yeast extracts, we just research it. We don't try and overcomplicate, especially in the Matua winery. We don't try and overcomplicate the winemaking process. Where a winemaker earns his money is when we end up with a year of problems.
Yes,
difficulties.
right.
Yeah. And that's when, if you have early rains and that sort of thing, you've got to make the best of what you've got. And with good, clean viticulture and having people that are out there working the vineyards and making sure that everything's clean and identifying problems, we end up with fantastic wines or fantastic grapes coming into the winery. And so the winemaker's job is made easier.
Have you ever cried over a vintage?
Cried?
Cried.
I cried one time when we had been working for 48 hours straight, and we were picking grapes. Actually, it was Pinot Noir coming up from Canterbury, and that had happened that had a frost, and they'd gone in and they'd picked the grapes, and in a frost it creates the petioles of the leaf to drop off.
Yep.
And the guy backed in the truck and tipped the load into the bin, and it hit like a brick, because there was all these leaves and everything was in this, and we had to dig. After 48 hours working straight, we had to dig that container out because we just couldn't put it through. Yeah, so that's basically, I don't think I cried, but I can tell you there's a lot of very funny words coming out of my mouth at the same time.
Here I thought you were going to say the ambassador was the most important part of winemaking. Our guest is Bill Spence. He's the co-founder and wine ambassador at Matua. And we've just been tasting the Pinot Noir. Now, this is the 2012 Marlborough, sells for $19.99. Delicious.
Yeah.
Like, as I said earlier, it's juicy, it's gulpable, it's just fun to drink. Really well done. Really, think back, Bill. Did you ever even imagine like you'd be in Vancouver talking about your wine to Canadians when you started?
No.
I mean, it must be.
We were trying to get our heads above water in those days, and I think that with the development of the industry, we believed we couldn't compete with the rest of the world, and then we started competing. We could see we had enough confidence in that we could do those sort of things. Yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest things with any nation. When you're producing such a thing as wine, produce what your country can produce. Don't try and emulate another country's product. And I think that's the beauty of it all. I think you go to Sancerre, and the Sauvignon Blanc in Sancerre is fantastic because that's the style that they make. And then you come to Blenheim in New Zealand or Marlborough, and that's the style that we make. And it's up to the individual to decide on what style they really particularly like.
What other varietals in New Zealand? Do you think we're going to see more different?
We're doing a lot of work with Pinot Gris. I think that's a potential variety, but there's a lot of Pinot Gris throughout the world. From Italy, from the Americas, and then we've got we're trying
Syrah.
Exactly. Well, exactly right. But there's different styles of Syrah that are coming out of New Zealand. There's some fantastic wines coming of that style out of New Zealand, but I think that we're competing on a market where we're not different enough.
Right.
I think when we can make something that is, we definitely know what the profile is, and we definitely know it's going to be different, and we believe that the consumer will need something like that. I think that's when we can start playing in that direction. But there are a lot of different varieties. There's a lot of Italian varieties being planted just on trial basis. We have Albarino's been planted. Yeah. So you would have tried that when you're in Spain, and so we are looking at different varieties. But I think that those main varieties in the marketplace, I don't think it's going to change dramatically at this stage of the game.
If there was another country where you could make wine, what country would that be other than New Zealand? If you had a choice.
I hate to say this, but Tasmania. It's Australian, but I really get along well with those Australians. But I think that's got a lot of potential. I think Tasmanian wine is really in its infancy. As much as there's a lot of Australian wine companies that are there and have been around for many, many years, I think that the styles that are coming out of there are starting to really stabilise.
And I guess the price has definitely gone up for land in Tasmania.
It has.
Yeah.
It has.
It used to be, I'm sure, very cheap.
It was. I just think that with the Tasmanian styles that are coming out now, and they're demanding quite high prices. And I think that they're getting those high prices, and I've just seen the wines, and I think they're fantastic. They show so much potential.
I might add that you're spending way too much time selling wine in Australia anyways. Isn't Australia buying every second bottle of New Zealand white wine
they
or
are.
something.
Every second.
That's got to be.
Every second bottle of white wine that's sold is a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc.
That's got to be the greatest satisfaction
Wow.
of all to New Zealanders.
Any chance that you have 3 sons that one of them might end up in the business?
I very much doubt it. I think they're pretty well settled in what they're doing.
You have a son that's living in Seattle.
I do have a son that's
For
living
quite
in
a while
Seattle.
now.
Yes, very much so. He's coming up to meet me. I just want him to get married. He's 35 years old, good-looking bloke. If anybody else there, give us a yell.
Oh, he'll love to know you said that on the air.
Yeah, you need those grandkids.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, Bill, great to catch up with you. So you're going to be in the role for a couple more years?
Yeah, 2 or 3 more years.
Yeah.
They might ask me to stay on and do a little bit more, but
You never
I'm
know.
committed for that length of time anyway.
And has your golf game improved since you become the ambassador? Or?
Well, I bought a set of new shoes. It hits it further, but it doesn't hit it straighter.
That's pretty good. I like that. Well, Bill, welcome back to Vancouver. I know many of our listeners will be here tomorrow night or maybe even tonight and can pop by the booth and say hello to you and taste some of the newest wines from Matua.
And you know what I remember about you? We went out to Oru Restaurant, had just opened, and you would not eat the tofu.
No, I didn't.
You didn't, and it was fabulous tofu, right, Tony?
Oh, yeah, it was fabulous,
Oh, we
Casey.
know,
Fabulous.
we know guys aren't going to eat tofu,
Yeah.
but yeah, I
That's 'cause
always
we're
remember
smarter
that.
than the
Well, that's
average
right.
bear.
Well, that's
Why
exactly.
would you eat tofu?
When you don't have to.
Yeah,
If I have to, I
exactly.
suppose I might have to. Yeah, no.
This is a man after my own heart, right there.
Oh, I know.
Bill Spence, Matua Wines, thanks so much for joining us in the Best of Food and Wine.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Casey.
Thank you.
You're listening to the Best of Food and Wine. It's a special edition. We're coming to you live from the floor of the Vancouver International Wine Festival. We are going to take a quick break, but when we come back, George Samuels joins us from Wolf Glass. It's a big show tonight. Sandra Oldfield will be here from Tinhorn Creek, John Symes and Rick Bonatati from Mission Hill, and later on Thomas Perrin from Chateau Neuf de Pape. And finally, Clovis Tatajay, you won't want to miss him, from the Sorbonne and from Tatajay Champagne. We'll be right back.